This is a demonstration of the bespoke software developed for data collection on the speaker identification by individual listeners in Courtroom Context project. This software was developed at FDSL in collaboration with researchers at UNSW Australia. There are different variants of the software for different experiments. This is a demonstration of the variant for English language listeners. The software can only be accessed via Prolific. So, let's get to Prolific. Participants on the experiment were recruited via an online recruitment system, Prolific. To be eligible, participants had to self-report their country of residence. They also had to report their age, languages they are fluent in, highest education level completed, and hearing difficulties, if any. Recruited participants were then directed to the bespoke software developed using this link. This is the homepage of the bespoke software developed. The link used to access the bespoke software from Prolific consists of the unique Prolific participant ID and the study ID. To proceed further on the experiment, participants need to click on Next. On clicking Next, participants are presented with the informed consent page. A PDF version of the informed consent page is available at this link. After consenting to participate in the experiment and clicking Next, participants are then presented with the demographics page. On the demographics page, participants are required to answer questions pertaining to their age, gender, first language, other languages they can speak fluently, familiarity with English and Australian English, and how good do they think they are at identifying speakers in general and adult male Australian English speakers in particular on two separate Likert scales. Also, when presented with a large number of pair of recordings, what percentage of recordings do the participants expect to correctly identify as same speaker or different speakers was also another part of the question that participants had to furnish response to. In order to proceed with the experiment, participants had to answer all questions on the demographics page. On furnishing response to all questions on the demographics page and clicking on Next, participants were then presented with the instructions page. At this point, participants can no longer access the demographics page or the informed consent page. On the instructions page, participants need to carefully read the instructions and then click on Next. On clicking Next, they are then presented with the sound test page. On this page, the participants need to listen to the embedded recording.
So there was 11 of us went for a walk down George Street to a coffee place. I don't know the name, but I don't go for coffee very often.
I just received a text from...
Indicate that they can hear the recording and also indicate whether they are listening to the recording via headphone or loudspeakers. On clicking Next, participants are then presented with the first trial, that is the warm-up trial. Trials beyond the warm-up trial, that is experiment trials, are presented to participants in a random order. On the warm-up trials page, the current trial number and the total number of trials that a participant needs to analyze are presented at the top right corner, and a link to the instructions page is presented at the top left corner. In order for participants to refer to the instructions at any time in course of the experiment. A participant can only listen to one recording at a time.
Have you got that text from... No, I'm having a difficulty with this, apart from the problem.
And it's not looking like anything further was going to happen. Took my dog back home, waited around a little bit longer, rang the vets. and then I was told to take the dog back into the vet.
Yeah, some of the things, reading some of the, deciphering some of the items as well. Yes.
To successfully submit response to a warm-up trial or an experiment trial, the participant needs to listen to each of the recordings for at least 5 seconds, make a decision whether the recordings are from the same speaker or from different speaker. Based on the decision made, the participant then selects a box to the right and then keys in a numeric value that is greater than or equal to 1. Once the response is successfully submitted, the participant is then presented with the experiment trial. So as we can see, the counter to the top right has now been updated. These experiment trials are again interspersed with 4 attention check trials. If a participant gets disconnected, the participants can get back to where they had left the experiment on reconnection. On the attention check trials, the participant has to listen to the recording and key in the number on the recording in the appropriate box.
Type the number 34 into the top box.
Unlike warm-up and experiment trials, the participant can proceed beyond attention check trials without furnishing any response. As indicated by the counter in the top right corner, this is the last trial in the experiment. On successful submission of this trial, the participant is presented with the almost done page. On the almost done page, to finally submit response to all trials in the experiment, participants need to indicate how good they think they are at identifying speakers in general and how good they think they are at identifying adult male Australian English speakers in particular on 2 different Likert scales. On submitting response to all trials in the experiment by clicking on the submit button, participants are then directed to the thank you page. Within 5 seconds after landing on the thank you page, participants are redirected to Prolific. Participants identified by a unique Prolific ID can only participate in the experiment once, and they need to complete the experiment within 7 days of having started it. For further information on the project and on the software, please refer to forensicvoicecomparison.net. Thank you.